You're listening to the Bird Dog Babe podcast with my mom, Courtney Bastian.
This episode is presented to you by Purina Pro Plan and Boss Shotshells.
You have to really think about what are you hunting for and what do you want to do with that dog? Why should you have a retriever? Why should you have a spaniel? Why you should have a pointer? Each one of those things, there are breeds in those categories that you can probably do just about anything with. If you're just a water hunting fool and you're just goose hunting and you're just in the marsh, you're wet the whole season, you're probably not going to want to go get a pointer. It's not a specialized water dog. Can they do it? Yes. If I'm just doing upland prairie hunting, I'm probably going to go towards a pointer. A spaniel is great for both. It comes down to what kind of hunting do you like? Do you like the excitement of not knowing when that flush is going to happen? Or do you like the hunt and experience of the pointing dog? Or do you like the combination of hunting with pointers and then also having that little flusher on the ground that's pushing those birds up? The dynamic together is amazing.
All right, this week my husband William Bastian is joining us for this episode. We have no children for the week, so we have the house to ourselves.
Whoop, whoop.
It's very quiet. And we are going to spend the rest of the day doing some dog training, horseback riding. We're going to go on a date to a restaurant, so that's exciting.
Crazy.
Right here at our feet while we're recording is our new little puppy. What do you think about her?
Well, it's been fun so far. It's a really new endeavor for us, switching from pointing to spaniel. So I'm really excited.
And I think it's perfect to have this conversation about picking your puppy, picking your next hunting dog, because that kind of goes into how we came across this new endeavor of ours.
Yeah, picking the right puppy for you and what you do.
Right. But first, let's talk a little bit about the sponsors and supporters of this podcast. So, first of all, the Patreon patrons, they are the bomb. Doing a special giveaway for them, thanks to our partners at Dakota 283. If you are one of the Bird Dog Babe Patreon patrons and you have written a review, you are entered in a drawing. I will be choosing on September 1st, one person to win a G3 kennel and another person to win a Dine & Dash.
Wow.
Things that we use quite often. You just grabbed the Dine & Dash the other day on your way to the vet clinic.
Yeah, it was very handy.
If you are in the market to get a new kennel or want to upgrade from the ones that you have, that you know, those kennels that we started with where you have to clamp your thumb and your index finger to squeeze it open. Are those squeeze doors? Is that how you say it? Squeeze handle?
Squeeze latches. I guess the only good thing about those squeeze latches is our little kids have a hard time opening and shutting them, but that's about it.
That's about it. And that, when we were talking earlier, that is your favorite aspect of the Dakota 283 is the door and the handle. Yeah.
I mean, the handle's great because you can just pick them up and move them anywhere I want, and that slam latch door it's really secure. It's just solid, just an all around solid kennel. I can't be happier with the product.
And you have a Ford F-250, and you can fit two larges side by side in there.
Yeah, comfortably two next to each other.
And I have Toyota Tacoma, and it's the deck system underneath, and I use the mediums that are side by side. Although two larges would still fit side by side in there, but not with my Lightner system.
Yeah, you went down to the smaller ones because of the Lightner system, right. And it fits in there absolutely perfectly and securely with that Lightner system in there. But you had two larges in there before you got that other system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right. And for the Dakota 283 kennels, if you are looking to get one of those, make sure you use the promo code BirdDogBabe and get 10% off. Purina Pro Plan. one of our title sponsors. Speaking of picking up some new Pro Plan puppy formula for a little Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, I got the big bag. Courtney laughed at me and said, well, that'll feed her for a year.
It's kind of nice because we're used to having a large bag, for 3 to 4 weeks, or for our large dogs.
For big dogs, yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. We'll be good for a while.
Yeah.
If you guys are going to be at the Dallas-Fort Worth show this coming weekend, be sure to stop by our booth and say hi and come get some goodies from us. It's been a while since we've seen you, been out on the road, so we're excited that the events are all back. So come and visit. Boss Shotshells, our other title sponsor. We just got a brand new clay thrower from Mech last week, and so we put in an order for some 7s, 2 3/4. We already have the 3-inch number 7s, but we got some 2 3/4 to be able to do some practicing here on our property.
Yeah, we're using some Boss here on our own property just because I don't want lead on my own property, and I fly a lot of birds around here with homers and some other training birds, and some get away and run around, and I just for the health of our property and the health of my flocks, I just would like to see it be used non-lead around here. So,
and you just got a new 28 gauge, so you ordered, or for your birthday, I got you some new shells for that. I can't remember, were those 7s or 5s?
7s.
Okay.
7s.
So,
I'll be carting that little thing around, doing some grouse hunting with it. So I can't be happier with the Boss shells. We started using them, was it last year fully?
October-ish?
Yeah. And I was always a big fan of copper-plated lead. It's all I really shot in the uplands, and I can't really see a difference between the two. The Boss really shoots just like my old favorite shell, and I can't. I'm not sacrificing anything by changing, and I'm just gaining some benefits of walking out of that field and just making sure that land is the same as when I left it.
And Syren shotguns. Shotguns for women. Although you've shot my D2.
Yeah, I enjoy shooting that gun, even though it's...
You had a couple dusky grouse with that gun.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
It's a fancy, beautiful gun.
And I just got some new Briley chokes for my Syren 20 gauge Tempio Light. So I'm excited to do a little bit of patterning just so I can see the difference with those different choke tubes and what that looks like on paper.
Well, you had that.
We got a squeaky toy happening in the background.
You had those Briley chokes last year, but we just got basically just a few of them for you to hunt with, and you liked them. So now you got a full set.
I know.
Exciting.
And I'm not super awesome at knowing the difference between what choke should be for which bird. So I think being able to actually see that on paper is going to help me a lot, and knowing what my comfortable range is that I'm usually shooting at.
Every gun's different. Every chokes are different. So it's really good to put anything on paper just so you know exactly what your gun throws.
Yeah. And Syren is back up and running at events, so make sure to check out what they all have going on. You have a chance to go to some demo centers. At most of the events they're traveling to, you can demo their different shotguns right there. So go to SyrenUSA.com, check out what's on the schedule. So let's hop right into today's episode on choosing your next, or first, I suppose, bird dog puppy.
Yeah. Really getting into, what's the right pup for you and what's going to fit what you do the best.
So we have the pointers and the flushers, and let's break that down with the retrievers and the spaniels within the flushing breeds. Tell us why you would prefer, or why someone should consider those different options of pointer versus a flusher.
Let's get into what they are first. So a pointer is kind of what it is. I mean, the dog's gonna point its game, and a flusher's gonna flush its game. So that with those different aspects becomes a different kind of hunting experience. So with a pointing dog, your dog's going to go out and find game and point it, scent it and point it, which is going to give you more of a visual and some time between the actual flush of the bird. So with a flushing dog, like a retriever or a spaniel, you're going to be watching your dog more so than their surroundings. So your dog's going to give you a flushing dog's going to give you different cues and signals of when it's on game, and that's when you need to make sure the dog is in range and you're ready, because that bird can get up at any time at that point, and once the dog is following that scent. With a pointing dog, it's going to give you those different looks as well, but it's going to give you some time. It's going to point and hold its birds. That's the main concept behind a pointing dog. Those birds can run off for sure, but it's going to give you more of a gentleman's hunt. It's going to, you're going to be more ready. You can get set up a little bit differently. With a flushing dog, the dog's on task. It's going to rush in and put that bird up in the air.
I think within the pointing breeds, it's important to note that a lot of them are also considered versatile dogs. So you do have the land and water aspects of them as well.
Yeah, but you can say the same thing for some of the retriever breeds as well. I mean, I've been behind some fantastic retrieving dogs in the field, and they can upland hunt with the best of them. Mm-hmm. But you get down into why we have these different kinds of things. Why do we have pointers? Why do we have retrievers? And why do we have spaniels? And it comes down to being specialized hunters. So with that said, it's you have to really think about, what are you hunting for, and what do you want to do with that dog? It comes down to breaking down of what maybe you should have. Why should you have a retriever? Why should you have a spaniel? And why you should have a pointer? And with each one of those things, there are breeds in those categories that you can probably do just about anything with. But if we're getting down to, if you are just hunting waterfowl, we'll say, if you're just a water hunting fool and you're just goose hunting and you're just in the marsh, you're wet the whole season, you're probably not going to want to go get a pointer. It's not a specialized water dog. Can they do it? Yes. But if I'm going to strictly spend 120 days or more shooting ducks and geese and stuff, I'm going to look for a dog that's what it's bred for. If I'm just doing upland prairie hunting, I'm probably going to go towards a pointer. And a spaniel is great for both, I think. They're great in the upland, and they can do some water work. But with a spaniel and a pointer, if you're just talking upland, it comes down to, what kind of hunting do you like? Do you like the flush? Do you like the excitement of not knowing when that flush is going to happen? Or do you like the hunt and experience of the pointing dog? Or do you like the combination? We were just talking about that before, of people hunting with pointers and getting that experience, and then also having that little flusher on the ground that's pushing those birds up for you. The dynamic together is amazing.
I think of it a lot like shotguns. So you can have one shotgun that can do the job for all of it, or you could get the guns that are specific to what they're designed for, just like the dog breeds, right? So I could take the waterfowler, the Syren waterfowler, out in the uplands, no problem. And I could take my Tempio light into the duck blind and shoot ducks with it. But I prefer to have that 12 gauge waterfowler in my blind. I prefer to have the Tempio light in the uplands for rough grouse, and I like the D2 for pheasant. So
let's get into that.
Okay.
That totally kind of right along. That's a great analogy because, that waterfowler is built for waterfowl hunting. Why? Because
Right.
it's durable. It's not
it has
not as fancy. I mean, it's meant to be
Get
in
wet.
the water and get wet and be bunched around. And then we'll go to the other aspect of that Tempio light. It's light for a reason because you're carrying it. You're walking miles and miles and miles with it. Where
very lightweight.
it's lightweight, and it's meant that way for a reason. And you're shooting maybe heavier loads in the duck blind, and a heavier, sturdier gun is gonna capture more of that recoil. And when you're in the uplands, you're not shooting, a ton, like boom, boom, boom. You're not shooting at huge flocks coming in at a time. So it's a specialized gun for its specialized task. And
Right.
the dogs are the same way.
Yeah, I wouldn't take the Tempio light on a goose hunt for sure,
No, probably not a good idea.
but it would work.
Oh, yeah. If
would work.
that was your option, it would work.
Yeah.
If you,
And I think maybe that's why we're now, I've been hunting 12 years. You've been hunting basically since you could at 12 years old. Is that when you could in Minnesota?
yeah.
Yeah. But I think right where we are right now in our progression in life and in bird dogs, we're not breed specific anymore. We are more in tune to which dog is going to, fulfill that enjoyment in the hunt and works the terrain ideally for what we specifically do. And when I added Broncos in about 4 years ago to our string, that added its own dynamic. And now we just added the Cocker Spaniel puppy, and that was for a very specific reason for me, for rough grouse hunting. That's really going to be her jam, but I know that she's going to be utilized in a lot of different areas as well, over on the prairies, once we get all the pointing dogs and her aligned to be able to work together. A couple of years maybe
Yeah.
next year.
I mean, they all have their own experience. It's like I wanted to add a long tail or a pointer or a setter to my mix just because it's a total different experience. Just the way they hunt, how they hunt, the style they create, the total look throughout the process of that hunt. That dog can change. Just the dog you put on the ground can change that.
Mm-hmm. And that goes as well with the different types of terrain. So what is it you're going to be hunting as far as the bird species and the terrain that you're going to be in?
Yeah, let's dive into that. I mean, so if you're strictly an upland hunter, but your main jam is pheasants, and I'm jumping in cattails, I just want a tough, durable dog. First of all, pheasants, they're really not the best bird for pointing dogs. If you want to break that upland bird down, your best dog for that is a flushing dog, something that's just going to get in and drive through all that nasty stuff, because those pheasants like to live in that nasty stuff, and a pointer that's running around that cattail and points. Yeah, I know there's a bird in that cattail, but I need you to go in there because I don't necessarily want to run around in it myself.
Right.
So a flushing dog is great for that. Pheasants run. They need a dog to pursue them to get them in flight sooner than later. Where a pointing dog will point them, and the bird may run, and the pointer will relocate, and eventually we'll get to the point where that bird was stressed enough that's going to go. But, that doesn't always happen.
I think of one of our, I don't know if you remember this, but one of our late season hunts, this past year with Carmen in those really thick cattails. And the watch in the Garmin was telling us that she's on point in there, and you're like, okay, get in. All right, go get them. Or, like, how do you can't do anything with your e-collar to get them to pressure and move forward. So she was just standing on point in there.
Yeah, she was telling me it's right here.
And
Come
there was
get it.
no way that you and I were going to go in that stuff to flush it out. It would have been really nice to have that little cocker at that time and send it in there and say, all right.
Yeah, go in there.
Push them up.
Yeah, that's a great example. We ended up having to get in there.
Right, you did.
Crawl up in there and... I didn't get any chance to shoot, but, I'm like, all right, I'm going to flush it now. The dog's standing here, but, that's a prime example of that kind of hunting, but a pheasant will do that to a dog. And even if you're not hunting pheasants, they are in that area and they can break off and do that. But if you're specifically hunting, those kind of birds, there's dogs that fit that bill better. And then with that said, if you're somebody who hunts everything,
yeah,
there's dogs that fit that bill as well. And, those are more of the true versatile breeds. There's a lot of versatile breeds, but some are fit for everything. That's kind of where we fall in line. We hunt just about anything, and I think that's why our breed of choice is chosen is the way it was. Is because it's just something that I can pull out and we can hunt just about anything with that dog. Mm-hmm.
They're like the Land Rover, right? The vehicles, like the all-terrain is the German Wirehair Pointer.
Yeah, they're something you can
super durable.
Like you can hunt just about anything with,
mm-hmm.
From fur to feather to anything. But
and ideal for the person that maybe does big game hunting to be able to pull out and do some blood tracking with. Would a spaniel or a retriever be ideal for blood tracking? I suppose they could do it, but
yeah. With that said, I think any one of these breeds can be taught and to do any task.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs are incredibly smart. They are versatile in their own way, and they can be taught just about anything. But some are just better than others, naturally and genetically fit for each bill. So
the specialists.
Yeah, exactly. Specialists. Mm-hmm. Specialists of what they do. Like the English pointer or the English setter is something that I would see running on the open prairies for Huns and sharptail, just wide open country, where a Labrador retriever in that situation just wouldn't be fit,
mm-hmm.
For it.
So let's finish that with your ideal breeds for just you personally. So you've already covered like a Labrador or a Flushing breed being ideal for pheasant,
mm-hmm.
and
or waterfowl,
right? And then you just said for Huns and sharptail, you'd like to have a setter or a pointer?
Setter or English pointer, yeah.
Okay.
And the reason for that is typically you need to cover more ground. You need to have bigger range when you're hunting that kind of a species. And those breeds are fit for that. Mm-hmm. They're fit. Their stamina, their range. They're a dog that can run on the ground for hours and hours without getting too tired. Mm-hmm. They're heat tolerant. They're white typically. You can see them from a long ways away, and on a prairie, that's really nice thing to have. You can see that dog for a long ways.
What's going to be your ideal breed specialist for, let's see, rough grouse or woodcock? When
it comes down to woodcock and grouse, I think a wide variety of dogs fit that specific bird. Let's say a spaniel. A spaniel is great for that because when you're in the cover of a woodcock or a grouse, you don't want a lot of range. So a close working spaniel would be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. With that said, in a pointer as well works there as well, but they'll tend to go out a little farther. As long as they can hold their birds, you'll be fine.
What about Chucker?
Chucker, I want a tougher dog for that. Like a wire hair or one of the versatile breeds I think would be best in that situation, just for the fear fact of the terrain you're dealing with. You need a tough dog. You can't have a dog that's going to break down. You need a really tough, durable dog for that because the terrain is brutal. Mm-hmm. Not on you as well, but the dog for sure. So,
okay. What about for dusky grouse up in the mountains? What would you like?
Well, I haven't had a ton of experience with Duskies so far, but I think a pointing dog or something close like a Spaniel would fit the bill as well. They tend to live on the edges just like a rough grouse, but you still need to have something close. So big rangy dog will end up pushing some of those birds off.
What about for quail hunting? What's your breed specialist there?
I think a great pointing dog for quail. Something that's going to be able to hold a covey down, pin a covey down. So pointers and English setters and Vizslas and some of those dogs that don't have a ton of coat, because typically your quail are going to be living in hotter climates. So just the structure and the makeup of the dog will help that as well, because you kind of want more of a heat tolerant dog. If you're hunting down in Arizona, you don't want a double coated furry dog that's going to carry that heat real quick. Your hunt's not going to last as long.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into that a little bit more about the characteristics of what would be ideal for those different terrains or weather conditions, like you mentioned with coat. So in an area that maybe has more burrs, those longer coated breeds, setters, I'm thinking Spinoni, Griffons, poodle pointers, wire hairs. That's going to be a little bit more of a consideration versus with the pointing breeds being the English pointer, the Vizsla, Weimaraner, short hair.
So you're talking like if you're in the thick of the mess, right? Mm-hmm. You're in thorns and stuff. Yeah. If you don't have the coat to handle that, your dog can come out really banged up. If it's so some of those breeds will have double coats, and they'll have an undercoat and a top coat. And that top coat is typically harsh, and it's harsh for a reason. It's harsh to protect the dog from the elements. So burrs and cockaburs and all that nasty stuff that we don't like to walk through, if they have the proper coat to deal with that kind of stuff is best. So throwing an English pointer through some of that stuff, they come out bleeding, bloody. And I've seen it, hunting, even grouse hunting, when the white dog comes in and it comes out a red dog, and its tail and can really get banged up in some of that cover.
Like you and I, we first kind of decided on the German wire hair pointer because we specifically loved the looks of them, the beards and the eyebrows, and So do we sometimes get caught up in maybe the looks of the breed and thinking, oh, that's such a cute breed, or like the Bronco, right? Like it has that big old trot. So you might love that, and you choose a breed just for specific characteristics, but may not necessarily be ideal for your hunting needs and wants.
But I think that has something to do with it as well. I mean, you have to enjoy the dog too, like we go back to the dog can hunt and work just about anything. But if you're really serious and really want something specific for that bird you're hunting, then looks really shouldn't be high on your list. Mm-hmm. But it still plays a role because it still plays a role in the enjoyment of the hunt. You have to enjoy what you're hunting behind. If you're staring at it all day long, you got to like what it's doing and what it looks like. And it's not even that. You're living with it all the time.
Mm-hmm. So the other 9 months out of the year, you're not hunting with it. You need it's a family member.
Exactly. You have to enjoy what the dog looks like and all that other aspects.
And its personality.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have families, dogs that are more well-known to have great temperaments with children, if you have other dogs in the household. I know a couple times people that have gotten wire hairs that also had a Yorkie or a cat. And while sometimes they do well growing up as puppies with them, like we know that one situation where the dog grew up with a Yorkie and the Yorkie never lost his little man mentality.
Little dog syndrome.
Yeah, and then they started to not get along.
So personality has to fit your lifestyle. And along with that, is the dog living in the house or is it living in a kennel? And can that breed of dog live in a kennel? And how is that dog going to handle living in that situation? And vice versa, how is that dog going to live in the house? It's like some dogs and breeds in general just are really high strung. Mm-hmm. They're really bouncing off the walls. They're bred maybe too hot to live in a house.
Knocking children over.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then there's those breeds that, you could not put them in a kennel situation just because their temperaments, their personality, and just the norm of that breed can't handle that. They need human contact. Mm-hmm. They need love. They need it constant they won't be happy living in that situation. And some breeds will thrive better in that situation. So that's something to think about when you're thinking about a breed as well, is what kind of personality in general. There's always going to be those outliers in each one of the breeds, but in a broad spectrum of that breed, like what kind of characteristics do they have?
Mm-hmm. And considering the rest of the family too, besides just what's good for children, but maybe the spouse doesn't hunt, but likes to hike or enjoys like agility or
dog diving or
dog shows or obedience. Yeah. So something that allows the entire family to utilize and enjoy the dog rather than just for those few months of hunting season.
Mm-hmm. And even getting into that is like, what kind of a hunter are you? Are you a hunter that's going to hunt the whole season, or are you going to hunt 2 or 3 weekends out of the year? That'll play a big role in what kind of dog you're picking and what puppy you're picking out of that breed. I mean, there's going to be personalities in those puppies that are going to fit your bill better. And a lot of times the breeders will help you out with that. But if you're only going to hunt a few times, go to a game farm here or there and maybe go out one weekend of the year, you're not going to want that bold, full on puppy
field
out of that
trial line, big running
out of that litter. It's just that dog's not going to be happy just hunting that little period. You're going to want the dog that's maybe a little laid back. It's going to be able to do all the work, but it's also going to be happy just hanging out with you on the couch too. I mean, those personalities can really make a difference. So you're going to be picking the right puppy out of that breed as well. It's not just the breed in general. You know, you take a look at the breeds and what breeds will fit that 1 or 2 weekend out of the year hunter, and then you go into the litter itself, and we'll even break that down as well.
Mm-hmm. And even getting more into that with experience, your experience as a trainer, are some breeds easier to train than others that would maybe be, you know, a good transition to get started in?
Yeah, some breeds, I shouldn't say they're easier to train, but I think some breeds in general can take mistakes and still be fine, where some breeds are really, I would say, soft or picky, and in an area where you make a mistake, it may set you back. And then there are those breeds that, you know, you make a mistake and they can shake it off and get right into it again, and they're fine. I mean, that's something to think about as well when you're picking out a breed of dog, because if you are very new and you're going to make some mistakes, maybe picking that outer breed that really takes a soft and tender hand and
more forgiving, and
really need to read that dog to make sure it's okay, is something to really think about.
Yeah. And I think of, like, just in the last episode, 65 with Jeff Lemonis, his transition of going from, like, the German Shorthair Pointer and now really kind of focusing his breeding program on personal hunting dogs with the Spinoni and Bracco Italiano, of very different approaches in training. And, I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, would a Bracco and Spinoni mentality, now that you've spent time with the Braccos and done some training with them, would a novice dog trainer, would one of those breeds be ideal for them, or would it be more difficult?
I think they'd be more difficult. Well, the way I'm thinking of it as is some breeds like short hairs, and let's even put wire hairs in those that mix. So they're a little bit tougher dog. And if you're just somebody getting into it and you're researching it online, you're reading books, and there's so many different methods and things out there. Some of these breeds can fit any one of those methods. Like, if you follow a method with that breed, as long as you stick to that method, it's going to work. Where some of the breeds, I would say Spinonis and Braccos for sure, now working with them more, is that they're not going to take some of those methods. They're not going to. It's just not going to work for them. So that's what I mean by experience levels. Like, some of those breeds are going to take, like, okay, this isn't working. I need to go on and change, and kind of vary what we're doing. And those breeds are going to take a good eye to read that dog, be able to work that dog properly. Where some of those other breeds that they don't have those problems that some of those other breeds will have, because they're just, I would say they're more of a tough, durable dog.
Okay.
And they're going to take mistakes with stride. I mean, you're going to make a mistake and you may not gain from that training session, but you're not going to go backwards per se with something like that. Mm-hmm.
Whereas with, like, a Bracco, you think if you did overdo it or put too much pressure, it would send them backwards?
Well, let's put it this way. If I have a short hair, a good, well-bred genetic short hair, and a good, well-bred genetic Bracco, and I put them on the same plane in the same program, they're not going to go the same pace. They're not going to... It's just, they're going to be very, very different, and even how you approach them and handle them. The Bracco's probably not going to take as much pressure as the short hair, will need maybe a little bit more pressure. And it's just the way they learn and how they've been bred, and it's very, very different.
What about male versus female when we're using that in consideration in choosing our next dog? How much weight do you give that?
I think that's a personal preference. I don't think a male or a female in the end is any better or worse in really any breed. I typically like females in my breed mainly for the fact that they tend to be more serious and early. They're more serious early. And the males tend to be more lovey-dovey, and they're a little bit slower. They're about a half a year to maybe a year behind the female to start out. But picking that male or female, I don't think there's your end product's not going to be any better or worse. It just comes down to the personality of that and in the end. And then it comes down to basically they're a female and a male. I mean, a male's going to have different parts, and the female's going to go into season, and there's just that plays a whole role as well. It's like, do you really want a dog to come into season during hunting season? And do your buddies have males? And there's a lot of different aspects to think about when you're choosing a male and a female, and why.
I like the males.
Yeah, you do.
But we get puppy inquiries. We'll hear, I want a female because males will mark around the house. And I think I covered that in an episode with Dr. Greer on the spay neuter stuff, that it's training.
Yeah.
If your dog is peeing all over your house, you have a training issue, not a male dog issue.
It's not because it's a male.
Right.
It's total behavior. You're allowing that to happen. If the dog knows it's not supposed to pee in the house, it's not going to pee in the house.
Mm-hmm. What else in considerations?
Well, let's go into where you live.
Okay.
What kind of climate are you living in? What does your season look like? Are you living in the desert? Are you living in the North Woods? Are you on the East Coast, West Coast? That plays a different role in itself and how the makeup of the dog. And we'll go pointing breeds first here. I mean, it comes down to, I think we touched a little bit on this already about being in the desert and having a shorter coated. You probably don't want a double coated breed in the desert because it's not going to help the longevity of your hunt. Mm-hmm. The dog's going to get hotter quicker. It's going to need more water. It's just not built for that terrain. Or you take that single coated breed and you go hunt in the snow and cold and rough country. It's going to be in a disadvantage from the beginning. And the same thing in waterfowl. Are you breaking ice when you're hunting waterfowl, or are you typically have warmer southern hunts? We'll kind of decide on what kind of a retriever do you want. Do you want a thick coated Chessie for that break in that ice or not?
Mm-hmm. And even I think it's important to touch on the differences in the dogs within a breed. So while we're being very general today, mentioning specific breeds, not all dogs are created equal within each breed. And we will be doing another episode specifically on choosing a breeder, because that is a huge piece of choosing a dog as well. Is, okay, now you've decided on the breed, but now it's time to choose the breeder.
And that's a whole nother topic. You pick your breed, and then there's multiple different things within that breed, and that all falls on the breeder.
Where are you at with the next Bird Dog eAcademy piece. I was doing the recording there for a while. We were putting some stuff together, but now we have a professional. He's taken it into his hands, and holy cow, I'm pretty stoked about what I've seen in the previews. And I haven't been there for probably all or the majority of what you guys have had going on over the last couple months, but the previews make me pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's all in editing right now. It's all filmed. We got the basically foundations of a young dog foundations all the way through its first season of hunting. So our goal was June, but I think we're going to be dropping it sometime here in July now. But it's all getting edited now, and I'm stoked. Every little piece that I keep seeing and stopping by and working on a little bit here is just like, wow.
He's doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
Cool. And what is that going to encompass the training for the natural ability test as well?
I think just tests in general.
Okay.
It's going to encompass those aspects. So there are pieces in there that are test specific to help you out to train for those certain tests. But the whole program is really, in the end, is going to create a great hunting dog. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing the testing systems, this will fit the bill for that as well.
And you have several different dogs that you're demonstrating with in those?
Yes, different breeds, different ages. Yeah, it's a good variety.
Cool. How can we find you on social media?
Find me?
Yeah.
You can.
'Cause I know you're not very active on there, but
I guess you can find me on just my kennel. Our kennel.
Okay.
Claddagh
Kennel. Instagram
Kennel.
and Facebook.
Yeah, and Facebook and Instagram and
CladdagHkennel.com. You'll be able to see the Bird Dog eAcademy.com. And yeah, all that will be accessible there.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions in the meantime, feel free to shoot us a message. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bird Dog Babe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it and tag me and someone that would benefit from listening. And hey, help a girl out by giving the podcast a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening from. Send me a screenshot of your review and I'll mail you out a Bird Dog Babe sticker. Be sure to join me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you're interested in some Bird Dog Babe swag or gear that I rely on, be sure to check out the store on thebirddogbabe.com. And most importantly, don't forget to support the sponsors of this podcast and the organizations that are working hard to conserve the birds you're chasing after and the public lands in which you hunt.